Short Saturday strong with America's #1 game window. Big game Saturday on Fox. Next weekend, Jim Harbaugh's full-time will release their offensive attack against Maryland. They do a kickoff pregame show live from the Big House at 10 a.m. Eastern, and then it's Maryland and Michigan next Saturday, noon Eastern on Fox. That was a productive drive for Jay Kaner and the Fresno State Bulldogs, but resulted in just 3 points instead of 7. And Jalen Moreno-Cropper actually got started with a run play. This was that last third down in the end zone. I'm talking about watching start to the track and then the return right there. That's where the ball should go to beat that 3-over-2 drive. But that was the spot. That's probably what Kirby Moore, the offensive coordinator, is talking to him about. Get Jay Kaner, get into his progression, throwing a safe ball, getting at least a field with field goal. With their kicker and their team psyche. So it's at play, 70-yard drive, just under 4 minutes off the clock. Results in just 3 points as Antonio sends it deep. And this will be returned by Garrett Wright. Wait for the blocks to develop, and it's spun down shy of the 20. And let's check out who's gone above and beyond, sponsored by Jersey Mike's via Suff above. There's the all-star team. Look at the transfers that lead them. So one team that has this many guys in passing, rushing, receiving, tackling on defense, and kicks. It's an all-star team. It's like Space Jam. In fact, they actually have a player who was in Space Jam. Right. But that wasn't related to my comment. It just so happened. Yeah. It's good knowledge. It's in the notes. It's in the notes. Lincoln Riley just bringing in a wealth of talent and making it all work, said that they're ahead of schedule and how they come together as a team. Williams swinging. That's Williams. Tequila Williams. And he's got a lot of time. He's going to organize quickly. This is what he can do. Extend the ball left. Get to the outside and pick up positive yardage. 4-yard gain. First down, what could have been a whole lot worse. No doubt, Fresno State got a little separation, a nice little game. And Riley says, hey, I got a couple of those. Let's throw it out here. Flip it back to my Heisman Trophy candidate. Jordan Addison is gloved. Out here to the right, Braylon Lutz does a nice job in coverage. But that's the thing about that dude right there. It's a 4-yard gain. It took second down or 6. Jones is staying there for running back. Williams, Addison, look out. And he is finally game tackle at 40. 20-yard gain. His defender just slips. Got on top of it. Maurice Norris now loses his footing. And when you do that, it's that kind of, as you said, you better look out. Great game tackle. Trying to put that ball out. Good protection. Fresno got a 5-man pressure that time. Let's see if it's taking it. Seeing that in the pool, tight end lineup in the backfield a couple of times already. That was a great drive for USC to get that first 2 touchdowns. This one's going to be a handoff for Austin Jones. He is upended after another 8 yards on the ground. We're going to counter versions 2 forwards. That's how I am. Anytime they get the variations they have to get. They're also prepared to get Travis done. They're also from State to get Austin Jones.
We ask the question every weekend at the conclusion of all the games, but it's even more apropos probably on this week 3, as this is basically the final weekend of non-conference play. Most of the big, major, titanic non-conference matchups conclude play this weekend. So we ask that question every weekend to say, what did we learn? What did we find out? What do we truly know about these teams? Welcome into the Voice of College Football on a Saturday wrap-up show that we deliver each and every Saturday night during the college football season. I will drop the link in the live chat and invite you to join the call-in show here at the Voice of College Football with still some extremely important games on the field right now. College Station, Texas A&M, a favorite but coming in wounded in a number of ways against Miami, of course. Having lost to Appalachian State last weekend, Haynes King at quarterback, generating less than 200 yards of total offense, only 9 first downs, anemic passing and rushing performance, only 7 points by the offense, and then losing four players due to suspensions announced by Jimbo Fisher, including Shamar Stewart, number 1 rated wide receiver, and their second leading receiver with 10 catches. Also, Chris Marshall, who came in as a top 100 recruit, another top 100 recruit. Actually, all 4 players, I looked them up, top 100 recruits. That's all they sign at Texas A&M these days, but 4 suspensions. And then on top of that, lost 2 defensive backs due to targeting during the first half, including their star safety, Damani Richardson, who is one of the best safeties in the SEC and an extremely experienced player with 34 career starts. So Texas A&M hobbling, both coming off the emotional loss last week, and then also losing players going into the game, losing players during the game, inserting a different quarterback in Max Johnson. But what are they doing right now? They are winning the game at home, far from over, about midway through the third quarter, and we will have more analysis on that game and further thoughts on that one. USC is a couple touchdowns on the board against Fresno State right now. I do not believe that the Bulldogs have dented the scoreboard. I know that they were in a first and goal situation, but I think they opted to go for it. I wasn't able to lock on that. I was setting up here, but Trojans, I believe, at 14-0. And we've got an interesting situation in Iowa City where the Hawkeyes may be even more curious or more rare than the weather delay and the lightning delay, probably more rare than that. So that's an oddity in college football. It's a rarity. We see it during the month of September, certainly in the southeastern portion of the United States with hurricane activity and so forth, a lot of delays and so forth, but it's an oddity. The much more rare oddity tonight in Iowa City is that Iowa scored a touchdown. They scored 2 touchdowns. I'm going to have to research and find out how this exactly happened. I think we need an investigation into how in the world did the Iowa Hawkeyes score 2 touchdowns in one game. How did they score a touchdown? How did this happen? All right, let's run down the scores. I'm going to leave the link in the live chat, and we can line up the phone calls, and we will size up the day in college football, of course, as we always do. The best game at noon was Purdue and Syracuse. That captivated me for the second half after I got sick of Georgia smacking around South Carolina and Oklahoma pretty much doing the same to Nebraska. It's actually USC 14-3. Early second quarter, we will have USC postgame live on the USC channel. I also believe live here with Tim, Tony, and the rest of the gang there, USC live postgame right here at the Voice of College Football. And don't forget all our postgame shows. They are expansive and many here at the Voice of College Football. I don't know that any of our postgame shows are still currently going on. We've got 2 more on tap. Again, that's going to be USC and Fresno State with Tony and Tim. Then we've got the Iowa. We don't know what's going to happen to that game. Maybe they'll call the game, suspend the game. They're going to do something with the game. There's a number of rules in play. It's pretty much a 4-pronged decision that can be made in Iowa City. But after the Hawkeyes and Nevada wrap up in some form, we should have Corey Brada from the Hawkeye of the Storm over on the Iowa channel for postgame. And then, of course, our guy Brennan, Traveling Fools, Miami, postgame after Texas A&M and the Canes wrap it up. That's on the Miami channel. Here is the link. Let's talk some college football. Meanwhile, I'm going to run through the scores. All right, here we go. Games in progress. As we note, Iowa leads Nevada. They're in a delay. I don't know where that game is. I think it's sometime in the third quarter. They delayed it. They barely got on the field, and they had to delay it again. They get back out onto the field. They thought they had like an hour and 15 window to get more playing time in, but they were only on the field for like a drive. And Iowa leads Nevada 17-0 again. If somebody could strike up an investigation into how Iowa possibly scored 2 touchdowns against anybody with a pulse is a bit shocking. Texas A&M leads Miami 17-6. 13 minutes left in the game. Utah over San Diego State, trying to make up for a loss and avenge a loss from last season against the Aztecs. Utah leads at halftime 21-0. I see Cam Rising has thrown 3 touchdowns in the first half in that game. USC, like we report here, 14-3. Caleb Williams and the USC offense is inside the Fresno 35. Arizona with a late kick against North Dakota State. They have just started the second quarter, tied at 7. Eastern Michigan leads Arizona State. A couple people I have heard put the Sun Devils on upset alert. 10-0 Eastern Michigan. Final scores. Clemson did not look this impressive offensively. Now, I didn't see hardly any plays in this game, but while tracking the score, this was a close one into the fourth quarter. Clemson beat Louisiana Tech 48-20. Texas wins over Texas San Antonio, avoids the letdown after Bama, but it was close until the fourth quarter. 41-20, Texas wins. Earlier in the day, Georgia annihilates South Carolina 48-7. Is there any doubt at this point in the season that Georgia is the best football team in America? Can anybody call me and serve up any other team that could possibly be right now the best team in America? Alabama steamrolls Louisiana Monroe 63-7. Ohio State still scoring touchdowns against Toledo 77-21. Michigan over UConn. So Michigan has concluded the toughest non-conference schedule ever created in the history of college football. 59-0 over UConn. I believe this is the first time that Michigan has started a season with 3 consecutive wins, scoring 50+. Oklahoma rolls Nebraska 49-14. The Huskers looked like they were focused and motivated. They hit the reset button with the new head coach. And then they came out and bam, 3 and out. They were getting after Dylan Gabriel. They shut down the running game, 3 and out. Boom, they get the ball. Beautifully constructed play calls by Mark Whipple. They run down the field like that. 6 plays, 75 yards, touchdown, 7-0 Nebraska. Then into the tank. Oklahoma wins it easily, 49-14. They cruised home to the win. They scored 35 in the first half. Check out the video that I posted on Oklahoma's chances to make the college football playoffs. Yes, I said college football playoffs. Oklahoma State beat Arkansas Pine Bluff 63-7. Kentucky over Youngstown State 31-0. Interesting affair here. I only saw a few highlights. However, consider what an upset this would have been. Missouri State scored the first 17 points of the game. Arkansas came back. They didn't lead until into the fourth quarter. Arkansas avoids an upset against Missouri State 38-27. In one of the next 2 games, Pac-12 fans, the next 2 games highlight the emergence of the Pac-12, highlight in these 2 particular games, the dominance of the Pac-12. These are the 2 most significant butt kickings of the day, not necessarily results, But butt kickings of the day, because these two teams probably from a national perspective aren't going to go to the top of the line or make a serious push for the college football playoff. But Washington beat Michigan State 39-28. I watched the first half and the beginning of the third quarter. I watched every play to that point when I gave up on Sparty. That game was not an 11-point game. It wasn't anything close. Washington annihilated Michigan State completely. Peyton Thorne played admirably. He played great. Michigan State just got whipped on both sides of the ball. Up front, just got whipped by Washington. It's like Jimmy Lake. It's like his complete tenure at Washington has just vanished. All the stench from his tenure and his just complete incompetence in running that football program just vanished. And there's been a bridge between Chris Peterson and Kalen DeBoer, because Kalen DeBoer has done a remarkable job with this program. Michael Penix doesn't hurt. When that boy's on, man, he can throw lasers, and did multiple times tonight. He was on fire in the first half, threw for 397 and 4 touchdowns. Washington kills Michigan State. Forget the final score. Washington killed Michigan State. And again, don't blame the quarterback in this one. Peyton Thorne was exceptional in this game. He carried Michigan State. He and his buddy Keon Coleman at wide receiver really hooked up for some big plays that kept them within striking distance. It was like 29-14 in the third, and then that was the closest it would be. The other significant Pac-12 butt kicking, of course, Oregon crushes BYU 41-20, another game not as close as the final score would indicate. It was 38-6. Tennessee beats Akron, everybody does, 63-0. Another significant game in the ACC, NC State over Texas Tech, 27-14. They led 20-0 in that game. Baylor won over Texas State, 42-7. Florida survives against South Florida. I believe Anthony Richardson, was he injured in that game? I believe. I didn't see any action from this game. I just heard Billy Napier after the game, and it sounded like Richardson was banged up in this game. Florida beats South Florida 31-28. That would have been an embarrassment, and that would have been a real downer for Billy Napier there. Wake Forest denies a 2-point conversion at the gun, beats Liberty 37-36. Ole Miss just laid the hammer down on Georgia Tech 42-0. Ole Miss is not going to confuse anyone with the 95 Nebraska Cornhuskers. Jeff Collins, your days are numbered. Penn State saves a little face for the Big Ten. They whip Auburn 41-12. I caught most of that game, at least second half action there. Pitt, Western Michigan. Pitt does not fall to Western Michigan this time around like they did last year, 34-13. Virginia Tech got by Wofford 27-7. Missouri over Abilene Christian 34-17. Army beats Nova 49-10. Embarrassment for the Big Ten again. Northwestern loses to Southern Illinois 31-24. Game of the day at the Dome in Syracuse. What a game. Loved it, loved it, loved it. I got away from Georgia, South Carolina. I got away from Oklahoma, Nebraska. I locked in on Syracuse, Purdue. Phenomenal. Cuse wins at 32-29. I posted a video on that nobody necessarily cared about hearing about Syracuse. So I got to remember that, because I knew that when I posted the video, but I was so excited about watching the Syracuse-Purdue game because it was so good. But I thought, nobody cares about these teams. When I post videos on teams like Syracuse and Purdue, nobody watches them. But I thought, you know what? The game just ended. It's on ESPN2. It's the best game of the noon window, and it's turned out to be probably the best game of the day thus far. Not the best ending. We know where that was. But the best game of the day. I thought, post a video on this because the Q says something going here, 3-0. Yeah, wasted my time. Cincinnati 38, Miami 17, Long Island and Kent State. Kent State beat Long Island 63-10. That tells us something about Long Island. Indiana lucked out. Could have been another embarrassment for the Big Ten. Western Kentucky missed a field goal at the end of regulation. Otherwise, the Hoosiers would have gone down, but they win in OT 33-30. West Virginia over Towson 65-7. Coastal Carolina over Buffalo 38-26. I'm reading these for my own just to catch up on these scores. Central Michigan defeats Bucknell 41-0. Yes, what happened with UCLA and South Alabama? 32-31. Whew! That would have been rough. Iowa State beat Ohio 43-10. Rutgers over Temple 16-14. The Scarlet Knights are 3-0. Virginia, last second field goal. I did see that. Beat Old Dominion 16-14. Ball State over Murray 31-0. Notre Dame finally found a little offense in the second half. I did catch the last maybe 10 or 12 minutes of this game. 24-17 over Cal. Tulane. Did anybody catch this score? I did not see any of this game, but Tulane won at Kansas State. Kansas State just beat Missouri by 4 touchdowns. That's why let's not jump the gun on particular teams. These teams, they're a bunch of emotional 19 and 20-year-olds. There's only a few elite teams, and then there's some teams that are awful and will always lose every week. Akron. Everybody else, who knows? Kansas State could beat Oklahoma next week. They just lost to Tulane. They could turn around and beat Oklahoma next week. UNLV over North Texas 58-27. Vandy gets by Northern Illinois 38-28. Colorado's latest gem was at Minnesota 49-7. Wisconsin thumped New Mexico State 66-7. UMass over Stony Brook. I always love to see the Stony Brook. I don't even know where they're located. I think in New York, right? That score was 20-3. Now, the ending of the day, I'm not even going to try to explain it. You had to see it. I even want to go back and watch it in real time and watch it all develop in the last couple minutes of the game. App State beat Troy 32-28 on a Hail Mary. UAB beat Georgia Southern 35-21. Kansas over Houston. Big game for the Jayhawks. Next week, Kansas 3-0, Duke 3-0. How about that? Boise State showed nothing on offense, but still beat UT Martin 30-7. Washington State over Colorado State 38-7. Bowling Green over Marshall 34-31. Who did Marshall beat last week? Well, Marshall lost to Bowling Green. LSU came back to beat Mississippi State. I watched most of the first half of that game into the second half, and I thought Mississippi State was the better team and should have had a big lead in that game, but they blew it, and LSU dominated the fourth quarter to win 31-16. Duke, the aforementioned Blue Devils, with a win over North Carolina A&T 49-20. Campbell, East Carolina, ECU 49-10. Tulsa beat Jacksonville State 54-17. Southern Miss over Northwestern State 64-10. Memphis downs Arkansas State 44-32. Charlotte, this must have been exciting. They beat Georgia State 42-41. Middle Tennessee beat Youngstown 49-6. Maryland, I caught like the last 5 minutes of this game. Good ball game. Maryland comes back to beat SMU 34-27. The Terps are 3-0. BC beats Maine 38-17. They had to beat somebody. UCF over Florida Atlantic 40-14. Rice over Louisiana 33-21. Oregon State wins tonight 68-28 over Montana State. And finally, New Mexico over UTEP. You've all been waiting for that score, 27-10. And yes, I do know that you all have the internet. I've dropped the link in the chat. I will do so again. Please give me a call, or otherwise we're going to have a short show and I will watch the late night games in peace. But I dropped the link there in the chat. Please join the show and I will check out your comments, of course, because they are the utmost interest to me. Fresno State has finally scored a touchdown with about 6 minutes left in the first half, and it's 21-10 USC. Brooks says that Notre Dame has some of the most delusional fans. They'd be ready to personally run Freeman out of town. Yes. I actually had people asking me this week if he had the worst tenure in the history of Notre Dame football. Well, he doesn't have a tenure at this point. He's 1-3. He was 0-3, and he played 2 top 5 teams. No one talking about Minnesota. We will start to talk about Minnesota, Michael, when they beat someone that actually has a pulse. The real MVP's here tonight. What's going on, man?
Hey, Mark, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, the basketball schools are kind of showing out here, Mark.
Yeah.
Kansas 3-0, Duke 3-0, North Carolina 3-0, Kentucky 3-0. So, what do you think about that? The basketball schools playing some football.
I may not have put that together myself, but you did it for me, so that's nice. And then we got the football schools like Florida and Nebraska that can't get out of their own way.
Yeah, I know. And a lot of people are saying in the chat, Mark, that you may have prematurely jumped the gun when disrespecting the Pac-12.
What don't people get? I don't understand. What if I disrespected the Pac-12? I tell it like it is. I tell the truth. The Pac-12 has sucked for 5 years. I just commented on the results the first couple of weeks of the season, which were clearly horrible the first weekend of the season. So I ranked it last. I clearly stated that last week there was little separation between 3, 4, and 5, but they still had the most losses of any conference. So it's not like they're just crushing people left and right. And now they've had a tremendous weekend this past weekend, but I have yet to evaluate it. So I'm not really understanding what people are talking about. I did not predict that the Pac-12 was going to have some horrible year.
Hey, I'm just the messenger, okay? I'm just the guy reading the comments, so don't roast me.
Really get it.
There was, last night I asked you, is the Sun Belt East better than the Pac-12 North? I'll ask you the same question again, but with today's results.
No, I told you last night that they're not.
Well, it might have changed. The Sun Belt East might have done something.
I don't believe the Sun Belt did anything today that I can think of that was significant, while the Pac-12, of course, had those 2 really good games.
Old Dominion kept it close with Virginia.
I'm trying to think what the Pac-12 has done that has really surprised me. I picked Oregon to beat BYU today. I thought Oregon would play Georgia a little bit tougher than they did. Washington winning in the manner in which they did surprised me. I'm not surprised that they won the game. I actually produced a video this offseason, Pac-12 fans, that said this is a potential surprise game. Now, it didn't turn out to be a surprise in regards to the Vegas odds, but coming off 4-8 versus a top 10 team in the country, I produced during the offseason. I said, there's a video that look out for this upset coming up this year. Washington against Michigan State. There you go. USC's beating Fresno State. They should. Fresno State's a good ball club, but still USC should win that game. Arizona competed against Mississippi State. That's to the credit of the Pac-12, and they beat San Diego State. Really, the outcomes where the Pac-12 has looked really good is Washington whipped Michigan State. It wasn't close. They were so much better than Michigan State on both sides of the ball all night. Oregon whips BYU. I did think that was a bad spot for BYU, coming off an emotional overtime game at home against Baylor and then having to turn around and play. So that did not surprise. Now, to that extent, sure, it surprised me. But I expected Oregon to beat BYU. So those are two big wins for the Pac-12. And yeah, Arizona beating San Diego State. So three significant, and then just generally being competent. Washington State beat Wisconsin last weekend. Certainly that was a huge win for the conference. So yeah, it's been a nice showing for the Pac-12. And I'll send out my conference rankings, and I will evaluate what I've seen and what the results tell us.
Yeah, I got to give some Oregon State some love. They once again today looked very impressive. I know they only played Montana State, but Montana State, I believe, made the national championship for the FCS division last year. They're a solid team, and they trounced them. I saw the score was like 68-28, something like that, and it's like, good grief. They just pulverized them.
And all this does is basically underline the point that I make all off season, that these teams should be playing from the various conferences should be playing each other a lot more, because these results give us an indication, but there's still not enough games. Ohio State, look at, the Big Ten's having a bad non-conference season. Do I think the Big Ten's better than the Pac-12? Absolutely, I still do. What I've seen has changed my mind to a certain extent, because the Pac-12 has played better. Then it's not just me piling on the Pac-12. The Pac-12 has buried itself with horrible results for 5 years. So I'm just telling the truth. But I evaluate and I consider the Pac-12 to be better than I thought they were. And I'd say the Big Ten's not quite as good as I thought it was, but I still think that the Big Ten is better than the Pac-12. But the results don't tell us that. And the problem is that the two best teams in the Big Ten are Ohio State and Michigan. Who are they playing outside the conference? Well, Ohio State had a game against Notre Dame, and we see what that's worth now. That result's been compromised by a lot. So, the two best teams in the conference are not playing anyone. This is what's wrong with scheduling. It doesn't tell us enough.
Right, and Notre Dame, you brought them up. They rode a struggle bus win today against Cal. Notre Dame, do they make a bowl game at this point?
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. They got USC coming up. They got Clemson. They've got even like North Carolina. Who else could? Well, just about anybody. Shoot, they lost to Marshall last week, and then Marshall turns around and loses to Bowling Green. That's another thing that I try to remind everyone, including myself. Let's not jump too far. The teams at the very top we're pretty sure about. I just, we go through this every year with those few programs. They're really, really good, and they whip teams every week. And then there's just these awful teams at the bottom, but everybody else. Tulane beat Kansas State today.
Yeah, that's a shocking upset.
Kansas State could turn around and beat Oklahoma next week. Probably not, but they could.
That is true. The way I've got it set up, I've got it in tiers. Tier 1 is Georgia. By far the best team in America.
It looks like it.
Mm-hmm. End of sentence, end of doubt. I'll be shocked at this rate if they lose a game playing the way they are.
Yeah.
Tier 2 is Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan. Tier 3 is literally everybody else.
I've got a quick question. So I believe during the offseason that you thought the three teams were the best, and then there was a drop-off. So now you're including Michigan. Why?
J.J. McCarthy.
Okay.
I am buying into some of the hype of J.J. McCarthy. I know they haven't played anybody that's good.
No.
But he's making quality throws. And I think his ceiling is higher than Cade McNamara's. And with their schedule, how bad the Big Ten is, they could get into the playoffs even if they lose to Ohio State at 11-1. and I could see them beating Alabama in the first round.
So do you think the Big Ten is that bad?
Yes, based on the results and what I've seen, yes, they're that bad.
Who's bad? Like out of Michigan's schedule, they're going to play Ohio State. Are they bad?
No, Ohio State's really good.
Penn State.
They're decent.
Okay.
Decent. 7-5, 8-14.
Okay. Maryland.
Average.
Okay. I believe Michigan plays Iowa in the other division.
Have you seen Iowa's offense?
Yes.
That game's not going to be close.
Okay. Okay.
Like,
so do you think the Big Ten's the worst conference?
No.
Okay.
I think they are the third worst conference. I would have it SEC, Big 12, Big 10, Pac-12, ACC.
Okay.
Currently. I just think the gap, though, between Ohio State and Michigan compared to everybody else in the conference is a significant gap at this current moment.
Yeah.
And it is so
like
Yeah, it's so significant. I think if Michigan plays their B game against everyone in the conference except Ohio State, I think they win.
Yeah, it looks like that. Although I've got thoughts that Penn State's got something to say about it.
Yeah, well, I told you all off season I don't think Auburn wins a single SEC game. So I was lower on Auburn than just about anybody else.
Yeah.
And after their performance today did not surprise me in any way today. I think they could lose to Missouri next week. They're just that bad. I mean, they just don't have it. I just don't think they're good.
Missouri's not very good either.
Well, I know that, Mark, but Auburn has a cultural issue, unlike Missouri. And I think the cultural issue mentally will affect Auburn because these are kids at the end of the day. And I think Missouri can go and act like Auburn's their Super Bowl and maybe fight hard enough and get a scrappy win.
Well, we were all thinking coming into the season that the two coaches that were on the hot seat the most were Scott Frost and Brian Harsin, and Frost is already gone, and Harsin just lost a game today. Now, if he loses that game by a field goal, I don't think anybody really questions, okay, it's not good. It's you either win or lose, but team performance would have been, okay, well, you played a good team, and you should have beat them because you're at home, so you got to win this game. Now you've lost to them a second consecutive year, but they get drilled. And now, yeah, the SEC schedule just gets, wow. I think it's Missouri, LSU, and then it really gets rough.
Yeah, and I mean, last week Auburn struggled against San Jose State. I think they only won 24-16, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not – San Jose State's a pretty good group of 5 team, but for Auburn at home to only beat them by 8 is alarming. And with their performance today, and again, they're just 19, 20-year-old kids in there, and they're looking at that schedule, and they understand what's happening. I think they could subconsciously kind of mail it in kind of early throughout the season.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't see a way for Auburn to even make a bowl game. Do you?
It doesn't appear so. They've got to win how many more? They've got to win 4. So they've got another cupcake coming. So they'll win one more game, and then they will have to win
3 and 5 out of the SEC.
They'll have to go 3 and 5 in the SEC. Yeah, I don't see it. No.
Yeah, I just don't see it either. I was impressed with some of the ACC today, like Syracuse, for example. That's a good win. Dino Babers, I thought he was on the hot seat, but I think he's playing himself off the hot seat a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, 32-29. What did you think about the ending sequence with Purdue kind of mentally beating themselves with the late penalties and stuff?
Yeah, I would think that if you're a head coach and this is what you're judged by is your team's performance on Saturday and you only play 12 of these, and this is what you show for all your work all year, is that you put yourself in a position where I thought Syracuse outplayed Purdue, but because Purdue can throw and catch it so well that they just made these ridiculous throws and catches in the last 3 minutes to come back from double digits to take the lead. And then, they're undisciplined and they put themselves in a place where they kick the ball to midfield because they had 2 unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. So they got to kick off from their own 10-yard line. But they still should have won the game because they had Syracuse at the 25-yard line with about 12 seconds left, and they give up a big pass play against a quarterback who's he made some great throws in the second half of that game, but he's not consistently a good throwing quarterback. He's a runner.
And for your tier list, for my tier list I didn't include Clemson, and I'm going to not include Clemson. I'm going to include them in the everybody else category until they switch from DJ to Cade McNamara. I just don't see a way DJ can win the playoff game. I don't even think they win the ACC. I'm not impressed with him. I'm not sold. I know some of the other teams struggle today, like Wake Forest, but NC State's looking pretty good.
Yeah, I think we get those 2 next week.
I think NC State could win that game. And I was very impressed what they did with Texas Tech. That was a classic look-ahead spot, but they went out there, they handled business, and they performed excellent. They
did. They were in control of that game. It wasn't as close as the final score. And so NC State, despite looking like garbage the first week of the season, should have lost that game. They put themselves in pretty good position now. They'll start the ACC schedule, and pretty much what we've seen so far out of these 9 conference games is 90% of what we're going to get. So we can pretty much rate these conferences based on the results. And I think that's a mixed bag for the ACC and the Big 12, and it's a bad showing for the Big 10, and it's a typically good showing for the SEC, and it's a way better than expected showing for the Pac-12.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. And I would also give the Sun Belt some love.
Yes.
I know they're not a Power 5 team, but, man, they are the best group of 5 team, I would say. And, when we go to the expanded playoffs, these early season games for these group of 5 teams are going to matter a whole heck of a lot.
For sure. So, Miami punted away the football with 3 minutes left, and Texas A&M's trying to salt this game away, 17-9. This shows us something about Texas A&M. Everybody hated Texas A&M all week and made fun of Texas A&M, and I get it. It's college football. People like to pile on, but this is why last week Miami and its fans were all full of themselves, and Texas A&M was horrible. But, here they bounce back, even with a lot going against them in this game.
I mean, this was as close to a must-win game for Texas A&M early on in the season as you possibly could get, because their schedule after this really ramps up.
Yeah.
And if they didn't win this game, they could have started off 1-5. So they needed this one, I believe.
And not that they've won the game; they can still lose the game. But you know what? If I just had to judge these 2 quarterbacks on this game, I would say Max Johnson's a better quarterback than Tyler Van Dyke. If all I was watching was this game,
I'm sure that won't bring up any controversy or anything like that with the Miami fans.
Just saying that, and it's not even that close. Again, this game. It's not even that close.
You think Jimbo Fisher's regretting not starting Max Johnson for the App State game?
Yes, he is absolutely doing that. Yes.
Well, Mark, that's all I got for you today. Thanks for letting me on here. Hit the like and subscribe button. Kentucky 3-0. We welcome Northern Illinois University. They took a tough L against Vanderbilt, so Kentucky should win. Be 4-0. Hopefully game day will be on the Grove at Ole Miss. That would be nice. Kentucky Ole Miss game day.
That would be sweet. I would enjoy that. All right, man. Thanks for the call. All right, before we get to our next call, Talk is Pitt coming in here after a big win against Western Michigan. Let's recognize our Super Chat contributions coming in. Appreciate that so much. K-Do, give some love to Kansas. Kansas, Houston. I made a comment the other day. I think this was last night when I was running through my top 5 games, and I gave a very high honorable mention to Houston, Kansas, saying, man, I'd love to see this game. It's on ESPNU. I got to say that I had it on for certain portions of the game, but I really had no takeaway from the game because I didn't really focus and watch the game. But Jalen Daniels had another superstar type big yardage performance for Kansas, and they won like 48-30 as a double-digit underdog against Houston on the road. Kansas beats. So Houston is good enough to beat, to take Texas Tech to overtime. Texas San Antonio, they beat in overtime. They play Kansas at home, and this is Houston, one of the upper echelon group of 5s, and Kansas wins this. Lance Leopold can coach. Kansas wins by 18 points at Houston. It's impressive, yes. And was Kansas ranked last week? Yes, number 25, I believe, in the rankings. And so Kansas is setting themselves up to be ranked quite high this week. All right, King Vegeta, UCLA will go 11-1. I believe that you've posted that in the past, just confirming your prediction there. UCLA, yes. UCLA almost went 0-1 today. I'll have to look into that one. 32-31 against South Alabama. King Vegeta coming back with this one. Virginia. Oh, Vegeta is how you say it. Vegeta. That's not how I say it. Vegeta. Anyway, do you want to clarify that again, Vegeta, with a super chat? Then we can work on the pronunciation. Now, if that would be Vegeta, then when we go with G-E-E in caps in the middle. I believe that's it for the super chats coming in. I appreciate those. And anytime I can mispronounce something, then certainly let me know. Talk is Pitt. What's going on today, man?
Oh, well, I'm very pleased. I will say that.
All right.
Extremely pleased. And now a lot of people aren't going to look at this like it's a big win for Pitt, but you have to understand quite a few things.
Okay.
One, they beat us last year, and they had absolutely no business doing that, but they did it. So this was a revenge game for us. Secondly,
why?
Well, because we were the better team, and I still believe last year we were the better team because we still outgained them in total yardage for that game last year, I believe.
Okay.
And we were able to pressure them all night. The thing is, they just made less mistakes than we did last year. And then this year, we're down both our starting quarterback, our backup quarterback, and we have to rely on a freshman QB who hasn't started a game since his junior year in high school.
Yep.
Absolutely.
He came in,
what?
To the Miami game 2 years ago, correct? And played most of the game, right?
No. I don't believe the Miami game 2 years ago.
Yeah, in Miami.
I don't know. I don't think Nate Yarnell. No, yeah. I don't think he played in the Miami game.
Give us Bevel, I guess.
That was Bevel.
All right.
That would have been Davis Bevel, most likely. But yeah, Nate Yarnell hasn't played in a game since his junior year in high school. comes in, first start, didn't throw a lot, only because we weren't sure what we were going to get out of him. So I think he only threw 12 passes out of the whole entire game, but had 179 yards passing, no interceptions, 1 touchdown. Deadly accurate. Deadly accurate. And for being 6'6", he can move. He can definitely move. There's a lot of sacks that Western Michigan could have had if Nate Yarnell didn't get out of the pocket. And the one thing that he has that Keaton Slovis doesn't is pocket awareness. Keaton Slovis holds on to the ball too much, way too long, way too often, doesn't trust his receivers. And I don't know if that's necessarily on his receivers per se, but we didn't really drop the ball that much. Actually, there was only 1 drop, and the other 3 passes were overthrown. So, I mean, I like what we did. I mean, we lost 2 offensive linemen during the game, ended up losing our best wide receiver, one of our defensive ends, and still came out and ran it right down their throat.
Miami, by the way, just blew the game against Texas A&M. They dropped a pass. I believe that was Keyshawn Smith dropped a pass on 4th and 4. It was right in his hands. Should have caught the ball. And that ends their drive and the game.
Wow. I actually had Miami beating Texas A&M, but only by 3.
Yeah, I picked Texas A&M to win the game, but I took the points with Miami, so they did not cover. Yeah, oh my word. That was awful. That looked like when you're teaching your child how to catch and they still can't coordinate their 2 hands in front of their face and the ball like goes through and they kind of switch. That he'd never caught a football in his life. But okay, Miami goes down in this one. I see that you went to the running game with our guy Israel Abanaconda, 31 carries for $133, and Vincent Davis had a nice game as well.
Yeah, and this is the reason why I posted a video a long time ago explaining my top 5 most annoying fan bases. And number 1 was my own, the Pitt Panthers.
Yeah.
And all I'm seeing on Facebook is people questioning Frank Cignetti's play calling. And I'm like, guys, you have to realize something. We're playing with a freshman quarterback who hasn't played in a game since his junior year in high school. 1. 2, we're not sure what we're going to get out of this guy, nor are we sure how our offensive line is going to hold up. So you kind of have to be conservative in the first half. But once Frank Cignetti realized what his talents were, it was lights out. It was done. That was it. And the only reason why Western Michigan even scored at all is because of our own mistakes. We muffed a punt. They got it in plus territory. They scored. Well, actually, they didn't even score a touchdown. They got a field goal. And they couldn't do anything all night. Western Michigan could not do anything. And I'm going to gloat about this win up until we play Georgia Tech, because we got Cupcake Rhode Island next week.
URI.
And but back to my point. Did you see any horrible play calling? I mean, we won by 20 plus points. What horrible play calling are Pitt fans talking about?
Talk is Pitt. You can imagine. Did you see all the other college football games that were being played today?
I saw some of them. I watched the Purdue and Syracuse game.
You're asking me the question about the play calling from Cignetti. Do you think I watched one play from this game?
Oh no. I didn't know. I don't know who watches what. There's so many people out there streaming college football games today. It's hard to keep track of who is streaming what game. So I had no clue what game you may or may not have seen.
Yes, I did not have Pitt and Western Michigan high on my priority list today.
Oh no.
I've got you for that.
Yeah. So, I mean, for a quarterback with his first start, 8 for 12, 179 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. And then our running back, and this is the first time we've had a running back who had 2 100 yards rushing 2 games in a row since 2018. So our run game has been horrible these past few seasons, and we finally have a run game, and it's not like we can't throw the ball, it's just our receivers drop the ball. Now, I know you definitely would have had to seen a lot of plays from the Pitt and Tennessee game.
Yeah, I watched that game. Not like start to finish, but it was one of my primary games. Yeah.
There's a lot of drop balls in that game. A lot.
Mm-hmm.
And if our receivers could catch, Tennessee would have never even came close to winning that game. It would have never even went to overtime. That's my personal opinion. And also, we missed field goals, which is the last thing I'm going to bring up before I hop off here.
Yeah.
We need a new kicker. All I'm going to say is we need a new kicker. Missed field goals again.
Okay.
He nailed a 50-yard field goal and then missed a 25-yarder.
Well, it sounds like you just need to kind of, stall the drive around the 35-yard line.
Yeah, true. But it was a great win for us, Mark. Thank you for having me on here. And probably won't see me much next week. I mean, I may actually even go to the game next week just for giggles and laughs.
Right. Good.
But thanks for having me on.
All right, man. Have a good weekend. Talk is Pitt checking in on the big win over Western Michigan. A great win. But we'd like to hear from Talk is Pitt. Like to have him on here. Pitt goes to 2-1. Let's keep it moving here. We got this is going to be a rough call, I believe. This is not going to be fun. Michael, how are you doing today?
Where do I start, sir?
Well, I watched the game, so I can follow along.
Have you ever, in all the years you watched college football, seen a team self-implode under a minute to go in the game?
Yeah. Well, I have, but they're tough to remember.
They're unsportsmanlike penalties.
Yeah. So exactly what did these? So just to understand that while the other games at noon obviously became routes, and so this became my favorite game after halftime. I'm trying to watch like 4 games at the same time. So after they scored the touchdown, I was just getting ready to watch the Syracuse drive. And then the next thing I know that they're kicking off from the 10. So what did these unsportsmanlike penalties look like?
All right. The first one was something to do with Payne Durham. I guess he got bumped and said something to the Syracuse, and then Brom goes ballistic. Draws his unsportsmanlike conduct. And then after that, when they scored with 7 seconds left, I guess one of the other DBs for Purdue or something got a penalty. The other person got 2 of them got thrown out the game and stuff. But Purdue, man, I'm telling you, blocked field goal. No, he blocked extra point and missed field goal.
Yeah.
That's the difference in the game, really, besides the unsportsmanlike conduct penalties.
Yeah, it was tough to watch.
Yeah, I mean, another thing, too. What was Aiden thinking? Take the sack, eat the ball, live to play another down.
Yeah. I think what happens sometimes is that they think they can throw they don't realize that with a 300-pound body on their back that they can only throw the ball so far. And I think I don't know if he was trying to throw it away. I would hope that he wasn't trying to make it to anyone because there was no one in sight of that pass.
No, there wasn't.
Yeah, it was a horrible decision, but he's a tough one to blame because he's so good. But yeah, that was a horrible decision by a veteran quarterback who should know better, especially when you're down by 3 points with plenty of time left. Even if that kills the drive, you get the ball back, and there were, even as it stood, down by 2 touchdowns, giving up the pick six, he still leads them right down the field twice in a row, even with a missed field goal in there. With about 2.5 minutes left in the game, he still squeezed in 2 touchdown throws.
Yep.
In the last 3 minutes of the game.
No, I was impressed with Syracuse and stuff like that, but no, I'm just saying though, man. Your video, I don't know if they're going to be a sleeper team in the ACC, but I think they'll end up maybe as a 7-1 team this year. But I mean, just like you got to learn how to. Same thing in the Penn State game. You got to finish.
Yes. Well, at least it's not a conference game, and at least you haven't lost a division game.
Yep, that's true though. But I don't know. It's just we'll bounce back next week to the Florida Atlantic and then off to Maryland, I think, for that game. But no, I don't know. I can only imagine what it was like on a flight back home from Syracuse. Saying, man, it's like, I don't know. I asked you this earlier this week about Iowa. Yeah, Notre Dame got their first win, but do you still see them being a bowl eligible team this year if they keep playing like this?
Purdue?
No, Notre Dame.
Oh, Notre Dame. I'd have to look at their schedule, but I think they're going to be on the borderline because I don't see this team beating USC or Clemson. So there's 2 losses to get them to 4 losses. And then, North Carolina and other teams are going to be difficult to beat as well. No, they're not playing like a bowl team right now because they just beat Cal at home by a touchdown. So do I think that they're better than most bowl teams that are going to reach bowl games with worse schedules? Yes, but that doesn't mean that they are.
Like that. But no, I do got to ask you this though: what's going on in Iowa right now with the lighting? Is there a set time to where if they don't get the game in tonight, they got to finish it tomorrow, or how would that work?
Well, I see that our friend Corey has checked in from Iowa City. He says still in a weather delay here in Iowa City. And I know that when I checked in on his live stream, he did a live stream during the delay, that somebody had posted the criteria for determining outcomes under these circumstances. And I don't recall what those are, but it's something about I don't even know if there's a time limit. I believe that one of the 4 criteria is that there is a time limit. I do believe that for the officials to determine that the game is over and that there is a winner, the game has to be in the 4th quarter, or else both teams have to determine that they both agree that the game's over. But the bottom line is I don't have the rules in front of me.
Oh, another thing I'm trying to figure out, did something similar to that happen a few years ago to West Virginia?
It's happened a handful of times. The one time I remember was in 1990 at Ohio State against USC. They actually called the game with about 10 minutes left in the game. This has happened a few times. It happened at a Michigan game.
Last week, but they didn't get the game started though.
Michigan was playing, I don't remember. It was a non-conference game, and they had a huge lead. This was about 5 years ago, and they called the game.
Yeah, I was just wondering stuff like that. No, I mean, like another thing too. It would seem like they was Purdue, like back to Purdue. They was wanting to run the ball, but I guess Syracuse's run defense is pretty good and stuff like that. Though, but like I don't know, should try to do another couple other things and stuff like that. and stuff. But no, Purdue's defense. Oh, well, I don't want to go say. Why is it when teams lose their games, they always blame the officials instead of blaming the team? Yeah, Purdue had, I think they got 14 penalties today for like 107 yards. Don't blame the officials, blame the players. They're the ones forcing and causing the penalties. Come on, people.
So you're talking about other Purdue fans.
No, I'm talking about fans in general. I mean, yeah, Purdue fans included.
Because people like to blame the officials. That happens in every sport.
Yeah, but
I don't see that happening too much in here. I don't see people in the chat blaming the officials for their teams losing. I don't see that very often.
yeah, there's been some in there and stuff like that. But no, you can't only blame the officials because they're enforcing rules. You got to quit doing this stuff. Yeah, I mean, like Purdue should have 2 interceptions saved, right? But they got in the game because there was pass interference and they was legit penalties.
I'm quite amused by Uncle Rico asking what you're angry about.
Yeah. No, I was just aggravated about how Purdue pretty much gift wrapped the game to Syracuse and stuff.
So, it was a great game for somebody that didn't necessarily care who won. I'm just watching a good football game. Although I did pick, of course, Purdue to win the game, and they let me down there.
Mm-hmm.
That was tough to take. But besides missing my prediction in the last 7 seconds, again.
Yeah, it's off to back to the friendly confines for homecoming next week for Purdue and stuff like that. So, knowing that, all right, Minnesota. Like impressive win save for Abraham. I think he had 180 yards and 3 touchdowns in the first half.
Yes, he had a big day.
Yeah, not bad. All right, I'm gonna
go.
Still
haven't seen Minnesota play anyone yet.
That is true, though. All right, I'm going to let you go so you get to other callers. All right, Mark.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it.
Bye.
So we got an alert, breaking news alert coming in from Colvarks, who lets us know that Nevada and Iowa will resume at 1 a.m. Eastern time. All right, so we get some late night football, not from the West Coast. And, I'm seeing that UCLA must have kicked a field goal in the last seconds. Yes, they did. The last play of the game to beat South Alabama. Wow. Where are they going to be in my top 25? That actually makes sense. Or my top 80. That actually makes sense. But, yes, 1 a.m. Eastern time, Iowa and Nevada. There you go. I let the fine folks in the Iowa stream know that while that delay was going on, that they had a better chance of resuming the game and getting the game in because Iowa doesn't score, and therefore they have less stoppages of time. You know, when you score a lot, then the game drags on longer because there's a lot of stoppages of time when you score. But Iowa doesn't score, so nor do they let the other team score. All right, next up here at the Voice of College Football, we've got Doc on the line. Hey, Doc.
Hey, man, what's going on?
What is going on?
So if you are a top-ranked team in the country,
yeah,
and you play University of Louisiana Monroe,
yeah,
I mean, that's a hell of a victory, right?
Sure. I'm sure Nick Saban is counting it up as one of his very finest moments.
I would too. Maybe like Pitt beating a MAC school would be a fine moment. You know,
well, Saucus Pitt, I think, told us about 5 times that was a great victory.
No, he said it 17 times.
17 times.
Yeah, I was counting.
I
fingers.
I zoned out on the final 12.
I zoned out after the first one, but that's just me. So the second ranked team in the country, the vaunted Alabama Crimson Tide, goes in here and pulls one out 63-7 against UL Monroe.
Yeah.
How many more of those schools does the Crimson Tide get this year?
One for sure.
Yeah, maybe in a bye week or something.
Oh, they've got one coming up before the Iron Bowl.
All right, they usually do. Yeah,
I will say that at this point in the season, I'll say that some of these schools like Louisiana Monroe actually play more difficult schedules than the likes of Alabama because ULM played Texas 2 weeks ago. So they've played Texas and Alabama.
Hey, well, that's better than Alabama, right? So,
Yeah.
How about this? What is it? I'm looking over here at the big board here at Command Center. Colorado State. So everyone's talking about Michigan, right?
Yes.
Michigan. What how did Bo used to say it? Michigan. Michigan. Stay up at Michigan. You'll be a champion. Colorado State that they beat up on the other night. They lost 38-7 against Washington State. It's not quite the Apple Cup, but they lost. And then Michigan beats UConn today, who will likely not have a football program in 10 years. And then they beat up on Hawaii the other day, and somehow they're the number 4 team in the country. You want to explain that to me? I'm on the Voice of College Football here. I'm trying to get somebody to explain this to me.
They're not number 4 in the country in my rankings.
Oh, well, I mean, do you determine the college football playoff seed?
No, I don't. Nor does the AP or the coaches poll.
Well, somebody does, and somebody has them at 4 because I saw the little number 4.
That's the AP and the coaches poll.
Next to the screwy little helmet that everyone goes nuts over every year. I saw this number 4 against a team that has played a school that isn't going to have football in 10 years. So that's what I want to know. Like, where does this come from? Actually, Mark, here's a question for you. Where do you have Michigan?
I don't have them ranked. They're not ranked in my top 25.
Not at all.
No.
You are like way off the narrative, man. You're going to get censored. You're going to get canceled.
I call it like I see it. And now that doesn't mean I don't think they have one of the 25 best football teams. It just simply means that they have not proven it or earned it.
All right. So has Alabama proved it?
They played Texas.
What did they do today?
They beat Texas San Antonio.
By how much?
8-21.
Okay. That's a good one. That gets you to number 2 in the country, right?
Well, you got to make some assumptions.
What?
Some assumptions have to be made.
How do you make assumptions when, Penn State just went down to Auburn and kicked the tail out of the Tigers?
Yeah.
All right. I'm looking at it right over here.
Sure. I saw a lot of the game.
I'm looking at it on a beautiful screen here, probably better than your screen, but don't hold it against me. I'm looking at it. 41-12.
Yeah.
They're 22.
Well, they were 22 before they beat Auburn 41-12.
What do you think they'll be now? 3?
No, they're in this poll by the AP. They're going to go to like 16 or something like that
at best, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Something in that range.
Okay, but Alabama's number 2 for beating UL Monroe. And Michigan is number 4 for beating a school that's not going to have a football program in 10 years.
Well, the way the deal works is we have a predetermined assumption on how good these teams are. And until they prove us wrong, they get to maintain those positions, regardless of who they play.
Tell me about Georgia. What do you think about them? Was that win today against the Gamecocks? Is that enough to be number 1?
According to this set of writers that determine the poll you're looking at, or me?
You. I'm talking to you. I'm on your broadcast.
Well, you've been citing the rankings.
I'm all over the place. I'm all over the place. I know it.
Georgia looks like they are the best football team in the country.
How?
How?
Yeah. See, can I just say something real quick?
How? Okay.
I want analysis. Every time I tune in to this stuff, not you, but other places, I just get a recap of the game. How is Georgia? I want analysis. I think we're dying for analysis. How is Georgia the number 1 team in the country? That's what I want to know.
Okay. When I made the earlier comment that there have to be some, and assumptions was probably the wrong word. There has to be some projections or determinations made. This is what I mean. Georgia annihilated Oregon the first game of the season, correct?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Like killed them.
They completely destroyed Oregon. So then we wonder, okay, how good is Oregon? They were the 11th ranked team in the country, according to the fabulous AP poll to start the season.
Right.
But were they truly the 11th best team in the country? Well, I think most people drew the conclusion, well, Oregon's really not that good. They just lost to Georgia by 46 points. But what did Oregon do today? So this is another data point that helps us, is Oregon whipped BYU today by 3 touchdowns. So that further substantiates what Georgia's doing.
BYU.
Yeah.
And what's their claim to fame?
They beat Baylor last week in overtime.
Baylor. Okay.
And you're going to ask me, what's Baylor done?
No, I don't have to ask you that because who cares? At that point, it's like your third cousin twice removed. Maybe you get married. Who knows?
But you have to do that with everybody, especially at this stage of the season.
Here's what I'm asking.
Okay.
Permission to pull the plug on this. Corey Bratta, private chat. When somebody doesn't like me on your program here, apparently. I don't know. So, okay. I'm just talking college football. That's what I see in front of me. If I'm not welcome here, I'll leave.
We're going to bring Corey in after we're done with our conversation.
Because it sounds like Corey wants me to be done now, but I had to listen to a guy talk for 20 minutes about Pitt and Western Michigan. Okay, so I'm sorry, Corey. You bring I tell you what, Mark, bring Corey on now. I'd love to hear what he has to say because apparently it's better than Real college football that I'm trying to bring.
Corey's joining us for one of two reasons. Corey's our Iowa guy, so he's getting ready for the Iowa game. Yeah.
Let's hear what's going to happen. Waiting for the 1 a.m.
Hang on, Doc.
Yeah.
Hello.
I'm sorry. He's getting a little excited here.
He's waiting to get back to the Iowa game, which is going to resume here in about 10 minutes, I guess. Or maybe he wants to join. Or maybe he wants to join the conversation.
Let's bring him in. Bring him in.
Corey, how you doing? Hello, Corey.
I'm wonderful. Let's
back at home.
What's that?
You've made it home.
I'm not home, but I'm at a home.
Okay.
Yes, I'm at a home.
Are you at the home?
Yeah, no, I'm not at the home yet. First of all, I got to ask you. Your name is Doc,
right?
What is this conversation about, Doc?
We're talking about the games today. Are you paying? I mean, do I need to go reverse this thing here?
Okay, let me size this up real quick because I'm still trying to determine, Doc, what we're talking about as well. Because basically, you're upset about some rankings involving some highly ranked teams that have beaten some really bad teams. But I'm trying to determine.
We're talking about the games, Mark. That's what we're talking about.
Oh, we're talking about rankings.
We're talking about the games. Okay. All of a sudden, Alabama is the number 2 team in the country for beating, Our Lady of the Hopeless Miracle.
Yeah.
Right. No offense, Corey. Right. Okay. So, next thing you know, we got to hear about.
Oh man, this is not a good idea. You bringing me in here because Doc, at least you had yourself to go up against Mark, but now you got me and Mark here.
Oh, I'm not going against anyone. I'm talking about the games. I'm talking about the rankings.
Doc, let's go back to square one. What is your point?
Yes.
The point is the games today.
Okay.
Where's the you guys, there's no bouncing ball here, right? It's just we're looking at it's called analysis, right?
Yeah, so what about the games?
I just been talking about them. What are you talking about?
Well, what you've been talking about, Doc, is not the games and why teams won or lost the games. It's about the validity of the games or the final results based on these.
Okay, all right, Mark.
Whoa, let me finish my statement.
Why did Alabama beat UL Monroe? That's a hell of a conversation.
Let me finish my statement.
Right.
Every point that you've made about a result of a game has been tied to a team's ranking. You've been bothered by the rankings. And I'm not saying that you're not justified in being bothered by the rankings, but I'm just trying to figure out it doesn't seem as though anybody should be, based on your evaluation.
I'm looking at this beautiful list
in the country.
I'm looking at this beautiful control board I have over here that you can't see.
Hey, Doc, let me just say something here about you brought up Georgia. Let me just bring this up because listen, Mark is more of a college football expert than I am, but let me just offer something, because when you made a comment about Georgia,
Right,
I have to say, with all due respect, and I'm a Big Ten guy, Mark knows this, I would love to say that the Big Ten is the best conference in America.
What did I say about Georgia? For the refresh it for the Pittsburgh people listening.
Well, I don't know what you intended to say about Georgia, but from my point of view, it sounded like you were downplaying what they've done. They have dominated an SEC opponent and a very good Pac-12 opponent who beat a pretty good BYU team today, and they've done so in dominant fashion. This looks like, so I don't know how an argument could be, I don't know how you could possibly make a claim that Georgia is not the number one team in the country right now. Like, I don't know, who are you putting ahead of?
Call, Corey. This is the whole point of my call. Let's get some analysis in here. Defend it. Let's just not say it.
I was in the process of.
I just did.
Well,
I just did.
Yeah, it took me 20 minutes.
They've blown out Oregon and South Carolina. That's your analysis. They've blown those teams out. There is no analysis when you win by 40.
Oh,
they're dominating.
Oh, there isn't. There's no ability to say, well, maybe it's not as good as what you think. I mean, I appreciate your analysis, but now what you're saying is that there can be no disagreement. Is that right?
No, I'm fine with disagreement. Just give me a rebuttal on that. So what's the rebuttal as to what's the response to that?
Well, clearly Oregon isn't the game we all thought it was.
Sure.
Hang on.
I agree.
Well, Oregon is now, so that was the conclusion that a lot of people came to, not necessarily myself, but I was just questioning Oregon's status after losing in that fashion to Georgia. But now we have another data point where Oregon has gone out and they were up 38-6 in this game. They won by 3 touchdowns, easily beat a good BYU team today. So that substantiates and validates the Georgia win even more.
Not completely in my book.
Well, of course not completely.
Who cares about BYU?
Okay, so this is where we were when Corey joined the conversation. I was letting you know, Doc, that we could chase our tail around the country about everyone because you asked me to substantiate the Georgia resume, and I was in the process of doing that. And you said, what's Oregon done? And I said, well, they beat a good BYU team. Well, why are they? Let's land
somewhere. Can we land somewhere?
Let me finish my statement. Okay. Let me finish my statement. We only have so many data points. We've only played 3 games. So Georgia beat Oregon. People have generally thought Oregon was a top 10 or 15 team in the country, but we don't know that. We got to see them play more football. Well, we saw them play a good football team today. They beat them by 3 touchdowns in a game that wasn't even as close as the final score.
Oh, let me just say real quick, not to interrupt you, Mark.
Yeah.
I just had a nasty lightning strike right outside this window. So the game is in Iowa City is supposed to be resuming, but I think we're going to get another delay. On another note, go ahead.
So then the BYU game is called into question, and BYU's strength. Well, they just beat Baylor last week. Okay. Baylor's probably do we know that Baylor's a good team right today? No, we don't know that. We believe that. We have evidence of that. They were really good last year. So we'll now take you off mute, Doc, because I just explained partially why Georgia is considered to be as good as they are.
Well, hopefully we get this Iowa game in before harvest, Corey, and everything will be okay. So here's the deal.
Hey, all I know is corn makes beer and beer makes whiskey, buddy.
Okay,
that's all I have to say.
I'm Irish, so I got you there. All right, we found common ground. Mark, here's the deal.
Yes.
My point isn't that Georgia isn't the number 1 team, right? Yeah. My point is, like, who cares? Kind of. It's like, they're the number 1 team because first off, I'll tell you this right now. They should have never hopped Ohio State after they beat nobody. And Ohio State struggled against, not a good Notre Dame team who's, really, whatever. But you don't lose rankings by winning. This is the craziness of the whole thing.
Wait. We're actually giving validity to preseason rankings that are based on nothing. You realize that Ohio State, we're going to talk about Ohio State. Please don't bring up Ohio State.
What are you talking about?
Again.
Don't bring up Ohio State. It's the best offense in the country. What are you talking about, Ohio State?
Okay, Mark, I gotta
He's
go.
on.
I gotta go watch the worst
Okay.
offense in the country. I can't deal with it.
Go pick some corn. Yeah,
Well,
go hard.
Yeah.
Doc, we're going to give you 30. We're going to give you one more minute on here for me to completely tear to shreds your last point.